Assalamu alaikum. When a United Nations official speaks to you, you expect certainly things like the Millennium Development Goals, something on resolutions, something on implementation goals and roadmaps. But let's not do it today. Let me speak today to you on a personal level. No UN talk today. Let's leave this behind you. Let me today talk to you about my hopes, my dreams, but also your dreams and your vision for Iraq. I've spent now 3 years in Iraq, and I got to know you, the Iraqis, with your warmth, with your culture, with your past, with your history, but also with your sorrows and with your difficult past after 3 wars and decades of sanctions. Now the question I put to you, what are your dreams? What are your hopes for a future Iraq? Now, I ask this question always when I meet my Iraqi friends, my Iraqi interlocutors. And I asked it already when I was here, the German ambassador in Iraq in 2006 and 2007. This was a very difficult time for Iraq with civil war. And I asked my Iraqi friends, what are your dreams, in particular this difficult time? And this ended in a kind of paper we called Iraq Horizons 2015. Now, coming back a few years later in 2012, some things realized, they materialized, but other things, they are still as they were back in 2006, and things did not go better. So once again today, in 2012, I put the question, what are your dreams for a Horizon 2030? How do you Iraqis think, how do I think, will the country look like in 2030? Now, first of all, Iraq is educated. You see it on the slide. The Iraqi population is 50% of them are below the age of 18. You have girls and boys visiting the schools. The minister mentioned it. Education is the primary concern of this country because the young people of today are the adult people of tomorrow. Well-educated people of today are well-trained people tomorrow. And this is really the human resources you have here in Iraq. I'm just coming back from Erbil, and you see it on the photo behind me. There was 3 days ago the 2nd International Erbil Marathon. And I was running together with, you don't believe it, 5,000 young men and women through the streets of Erbil. Now, I myself, because being an elderly man, I didn't run 42 kilometers, of course, but I ran 10 kilometers with them. And I cannot tell you how heartwarming this was to run together with 5,000 young men and women, and this is a symbol for the future of Iraq. This is possible in Iraq 2012, despite of the violence we have here in Baghdad. This was 3 days ago back in Erbil in Kurdistan, and it is a signal how Iraq really could look like, also all of Iraq in 2030. Iraq is prosperous. Iraq is already now the 3rd largest oil exporting country in the world. In 2030, there will be 8 million barrels per day to be exported. There will be $800 million coming into the country for the benefit of the people. Make good use of it, and I'm very confident that this will happen. Iraq is a rich country, not only with the human resources, also with the natural resources. Now, oil also can be a curse. And I would think, I would dream, I would hope that the blessings of the oil wealth will benefit the people of Iraq. And as a German Green, you allow me this personal word, this is something which is often neglected. Iraq in 2030 is green. Do not forget it. With all the problems Iraq has, with the violence, with the security, with the economic wealth of the oil, do not forget that that future generations have to inherit this country, make it green. When I was here in 2006, the number of sandstorms was half than it was 2012. And in 5 years from now, the sandstorms, which will impact on the health and the economy of the country, will double from now. And one has to take care of it now. And this is what is badly needed. Keep, please, and this is my hope, my vision, my dream, keep Iraq green. Now it becomes a little bit tricky. We enter into the field of politics. The Iraq of 2013 is democratic. There are people going to vote. It's an e-vote in 2013. And so far, my personal and professional life revolved around politics. If I close my eyes, I see a parliament in 2030 which contains rich and poor, men and women, young and old. If I close my eyes, I see a cabinet in 2030 in this country which does not contain 40 ministers, which contains maybe 20 ministers, professionals. Now, I know very well this does not come overnight. It needs time, but it is very important that one starts today in 2012 until we reach the 2030 end state. It is very important that you, I see many young people here in the room, that you, young population here of Iraq, take the fate into your own hands and you shape your future. I do not want to see you in the year 2030 calling for a time machine to bring you back to 2012 because you want to make things differently. Now, it gets even more tricky. How do we achieve it? How do you, Iraqis, achieve it? I'm not an Iraqi. Every country follows its own pace, its own history, its own tradition, its own speed above all. Now, talking to Iraqis, I very often see parallels, and allow me this word, to my own private life. I grew up in the Germany after the World War, after the Second World War, in the early 50s. The Second World War left Europe, left Germany in shambles. It cost 60 million dead. 60 million dead died on the battlefields of Europe. This was for us as a young generation in the 50s and 60s a challenge. Many of our parents and grandfathers' generation, they justified what happened. We did not understand it. And we went on confrontation with our parents' generation. We requested denazification, to take those who were responsible for the disaster out of the legal system, out of politics. On the other side, we said yes. We said yes to democracy. We said yes to the rule of law. We said yes to human rights. And we said yes to the participation, in particular of the young population, in the political process. Now let me become very little bit, colonialistic. After the war in Europe, and I think this is a model for the whole world, the European Union was founded. And the European Union is, I think, the biggest peace project of mankind, bringing peoples together and preserving the peace of former arch enemies, preserving the peace until this very day. And I must say, I'm very glad that the European Union got the Peace Nobel Prize. And this was done mainly by the young population. They were not as numerous as you here in the country. We were less at that time. Our older political generation in Europe, they framed the Europe, and we filled it with life. Now let me briefly come to the end. What values do we in the world need in order to keep peace, to promote peace, and to get away from violence? I would only highlight two of them. The first one is tolerance, and the second one is dialogue. Now, tolerance is a big word. What is tolerance? I think tolerance hurts. Tolerance hurts. Tolerance is acceptance despite disagreement. Now, I show you an example. You see this young boy behind me here. There are many fathers and mothers here in the auditorium. What would you, fathers and mothers, say if your son would suddenly dye his hair in green and have this kind of provoking, boring expression in his face? Would you tolerate or not? It hurts. Now, let me reveal you the secret. The guy you see behind me is my own son. So suddenly he appeared with his green hair. Now, for a father, as I said, I mean, it's very difficult now to say, what do you react? I mean, how do you react? And I decided to be tolerant. I decided to accept it, despite I really do not agree that a son of mine, I have 3 children, son of mine runs around through the streets of Berlin with this hair. Well, and me next to him, you can imagine the embarrassing situations I encountered. Now, but I also can reveal you that this very boy is a young man of today, 2 years later, and he is studying with normal hair like I have, engineering in Germany. He will become an engineer in 2 years from now, probably get a job and build bridges across rivers in Germany. So tolerance hurts. And my message to the young ones is, coming from this experience as a father myself, take your own way. And to the older ones, to the mothers and fathers in this room and who are listening, just tolerate it. Now, but tolerance has an end. Tolerance ends where violence starts. Tolerance ends where violence starts. And this is a topic here. This is on a personal level. Yesterday, I read in the papers that a man shot an 11-year-old girl because she wanted to go to school. This is unacceptable. But it also refers to the political violence. This is, by the way, a word I do not like, political violence, as if violence is justified by any means. Also, this is unacceptable. Terrorism is something which is unacceptable. And here again, I think of the many among us last night who woke up at 2:30 with a thunderstorm. Of course, everybody of us woke up and thought this is a huge explosion. But it wasn't an explosion, it's a thunderstorm. And this symbolized for me, once again, in particular, the many children, the young people, the trauma you have here in this country. This has to end, and violence should not be tolerated. Let me come to the end with a personal note. I very often, in my conversation with the young people, I hear the argument, everything is hopeless. Now, the hopelessness is something I must confess, the hopelessness of a situation I cannot accept. That is nothing like hopelessness. And during all my professional work, I have been dealing with people in countries in hopeless situations. In Afghanistan, in Palestine, in Nicaragua, Haiti, Cambodia, wherever. I was there and always heard this argument, it is hopeless. What are we going to do? But in many cases there was progress. and 2030. You will have this progress here also. So I do not accept the term of hopelessness, and we indeed, from the United Nations, but together, in particular with you, we made the world better in these so-called hopeless situations. Now, I'm a foreigner here. I will leave this country sooner or later. And my dreams for Iraq are my dreams. I told you a few of them. But now forget everything what I said over the last 15 minutes. It is now up to you. You develop your own dreams to determine what your dreams are, to build up your future yourself, in particular the young generation, in particular the 50% of the population who will rule the country in 2030. With all due respect to the representatives of the government, in 2030, the present government will be gone. You, young population of Iraq, are the future. Take your chance, shape your future, and above all, كل عام وأنتم بخير. شكرا جزيلا.